had to describe Sonic in one word, it would be fast. See, I'm already done. Sonic is not just your ordinary run-of-the-mill speedster. He practically invented fast. And if he didn't, he could run so fast that he goes back in time so that he practically invented fast. When you have a ball of energy this capable, you can't just put him in the middle of GTA and expect to use him at his full potential. He needs ramps, he needs loops, he needs Green Hill Zone for the 47th game in a row, and this list goes on. After doing a video where we made Mario and Sonic swap games and then realized that Sonic is essentially too gifted to platform anywhere else, it really got my gears turning. So the question is, if Sonic stages were really crafted for someone as talented as the Blue Blur, would anyone else survive? I mean, these stages were made for the greatest speedster in existence, so that's what we're figuring out today. Yeah, that's right, today we're gonna be trying to beat a Sonic the Hedgehog game with a non-Sonic the Hedgehog character. And these are gonna get increasingly more obscure as the video goes on. Also, I didn't even look up to see if you could beat the game with any of these mods, so chances are we don't even make it to the end. This may be the most janky video I've ever made, but you know what they say, das amore, let's get in there. But before we keep going, I kind of want to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart. And that's Honkai Star Rail, baby! Have you ever wanted to play as a cute girl in space? Well, this is the game for you. Honkai Star Rail is a beautiful space fantasy RPG created by Hoyoverse. Those are the guys who made Genshin Impact. Embark on a space adventure as a squadron of beautiful characters and experience the impeccable animation and music. I mean, look at these graphics. They look better than me. And the characters? Oh, good shit! We got Blade, the silent bad boy who flips out and can deal AoE wind damage at the cost of his own HP. We got the very hyped Kafka, who could use her submachine gun and her katana to deal lightning damage and trigger dot effects dealt by her party. She's also the character that created you, the protagonist, meaning you can legally call her mommy. Is that not enough for you? Well, I'm not done speaking yet. The 1.2 update is out now, and it's full of amazing new content. So be sure to download this game from my link in the description below, or just check the pinned comment. Like, I'm amazed you haven't gotten it yet. This game has over 40 million downloads already, which is 5 times the population of Earth. Give the retro synth Avenger Blade or the elegant and ruthless Kafka a try for yourself as they arrive to the Honkai Star Rail scene right now. And also use the code for 50 Stellar Jades. Download Honkai Star Rail today and I'll be seeing you, Space Cowboy. Yoshi is a significantly slower character than Sonic because he's not Sonic, duh. But what he lacks in speed, he makes up for with sheer optimism and willpower. I mean, just look at how cute he is. Also, he has a little baby Sonic on his back in this, so that makes it so much better. I immediately start my run and get a feel for Yoshi's moveset, which is incredibly helpful. He has a double jump in the form of a flutter kick, which he uses to cross large chasms. Yoshi can swallow most enemies, which give him eggs. Then he could throw the eggs to deal damage to enemies across the screen. Yoshi can't just jump on most enemies like Sonic does. He has a ground pound, which is incredibly awkward in a momentum game because it stops you in your tracks. Also, homeboy actually hauls ass. We hit our first boss fight, which my dumbass accidentally shows up to with no rings or eggs, but we just ground pound him repeatedly and send Eggman packing with a pair of pink eyes. That's gross. Next up, we got the anxiety-inducing chemical plant zone. And I want to take a quick second to talk about level design because this is kind of important. The big thing about this stage is that it's when the training wheels kind of come off. You see, this is a map of Emerald Hill Zone, and this is a map of Chemical Plant Zone. Alongside introducing new gimmicks, Sonic stages tend to explore verticality to give the Blue Blur a bigger playground, which is super interesting for this challenge because different characters are going to have to use different methods to get around. Sorry if it looks like I'm sweating, my AC doesn't work and it is about 110 degrees. This zone is pretty uneventful otherwise. Besides seeing Yoshi run fast enough to make any human being pass out, things were going a little too good for me, so I ended up letting my guard down, and that's when I went for this flower right here, which didn't do anything except for soft lock me. Bro, please, for the love of God. We hit our first underwater section, which is way scarier now because there's a baby involved. Luckily, Yoshi's flutter kick basically propels him to the top of the water, so I wasn't ever in real danger. Just pretend. Finally, we get to the boss and I immediately take my first death. Second time around, I realized that you could just eat the monster that he throws and then pelt him with an egg. So things go pretty smoothly and we head on over to the aquatic ruin zone. This entire zone was okay. And now it was time for a stage that I knew was gonna be an issue. Casino Night Zone, which is normally one of my favorite sections in any Sonic game. But unfortunately, as you can imagine, when you play through a pinball simulator as a thing that can't become a pinball, it is not good. Don't believe me? Well, let me put you in a pinball machine. You have bumpers you run into, things that launch you into the air, etc. But when you play as Yoshi, you just kind of hover over everything and worry about your blue baby. It definitely ruins the whole point of the stage. This boss was a massive pain in my green ass. The entire boss fight is built around the bumpers. With Sonic, it's pretty easy because he deals damage when he's launched. But when you're Yoshi, if you launch yourself into Eggman, you're just expediting your ass beating. I'm still pretty good at platforming games though, so I'm sure I'll probably get it in my second try. Next up, we got Hilltop Zone, which is unfortunately the first level in Sonic history where the soundtrack misses. Yeah, I don't want to listen to this either. Next up, we have Mystic Cave Zone, which is a cave. I never really liked this zone as a kid because it kind of felt wrong for a Sonic game. Like, you have to stop a lot, pull a bunch of levers, wait around, and it just didn't fit the overall vibe this game normally goes for. But I will say this, if it weren't for my primary knowledge, I would actually believe that this level was made for a Yoshi game. I would even go as far as to say that Yoshi fit this stage better than Sonic did. A weird thing to say, but I kinda stand by it. And this is actually true for both acts, including the boss. You just dodge falling objects, swallow some stuff, and then throw eggs. This is literally a boss in Yoshi's Island. It's crazy, right? My brain is blasting right now. Next up, we got Oil Ocean Zone, which is by far the worst zone for this challenge. They introduce a lot of gimmicks, half of which are very not fun, and the entire vibe feels like it could be the cover of a global warming documentary. I live in Los Angeles. If I wanted to see the world ending, I would just peek outside my window, okay? I don't need this energy. Then it was time to hit Metropolis Zone, which has 3 acts, mind you. I normally don't really care for metal stages in video games, but this one actually does it pretty well. It's a slower stage, there's things to dodge and things to wait for, but the coolest thing about this one is that when you go too far up, you loop through the bottom. The boss here isn't bad either. It's a little bit awkward for my taste, but it works. And then I discovered one of the worst things I have ever seen in my life. Yoshi can actually eat the forest creatures. Look, you can eat them! Oh! I ate most of those! That's so crazy. Next up was Sky Chase Zone, which is just an auto-scrolling section, so there's not much to say here. Except look, is Baby Mario flying the plane? He don't got a license. And then we get to the actual last stage of the entire game, Wing Fortress Zone. As far as final stages go, this one was very cool thematically, but it was kind of a letdown. I get that this is the point where you're supposed to be chasing down the main antagonist and getting ready for your final fight, but I can't help feeling like the level design here belonged way earlier in the game. Like, this is easier than the 3rd stage. The worst part was these annoying booster things on the ground that are supposed to propel Sonic forward, but on Yoshi, they just launch you so fast that you die. What kind of Danganronpa style execution is that? After a couple of Yoshi flutter kicks, we break into the boss section of the stage and make very light work of this weird laser thing. You're supposed to use these things as platforms in order to jump into the laser, but Yoshi can just swallow them and then throw them, so cool, I guess. After that, Eggman escapes, and then it's time for the Death Egg, aka the real final stage of the game. Metal Sonic kicks my ass until I realize that I could just deal damage to him if I ground pound his eyeballs. And then once Metal Sonic explodes, Eggman tries to sprint out of there like a bat out of hell. Fortunately, Yoshi's favorite movie is Jurassic Park because he eats the fat man the second that he's alone. Somehow Eggman, or I guess just Egg, what the fuck? Jumps into a mech, and this was it. The final showdown. I didn't have any eggs, so doing this boss fight was a little awkward to figure out, but basically the only way to deal damage is to time your ground pound as he comes down from his ground pound attack. If you do that, you both take damage, but my boy Yoshi can handle it. He also randomly drops these little dudes that you could swallow and turn into eggs, but I think that only happens after the ground pound, so whatever. And shortly after a few very slow rounds of this, it was time to collect our first W. I felt a lot of emotions in this moment. I was happy because we finished. Surprised because, like I said before, I didn't even think I was gonna make it to the end, and of course I was incontinent because I was chugging black coffee the entire time. But above all else, I was impressed because this actually worked really well. Throughout the entirety of Sonic 2's level design, Yoshi only struggled 2 or 3 times. If it weren't for these minor hiccups, replacing the sprites and music would genuinely trick me into believing that these were Yoshi stages to begin with. It was a very cool experience, and if you're a Sonic or Yoshi fan, I highly recommend you try this mod for yourself so you could see how much it holds up. I give it an 8 out of 10. I can't believe I need like a designated sweat towel. That's so gross. And now it was finally time for character number 2. Quick thing, I spent a lot of time on the Yoshi run focusing on level design and stages because I want to spend these next 2 runs focusing only on what made it different for these characters. Moving on. The next character I chose played entirely different from Yoshi and Sonic. He's way more calculated and precise, methodical, and somewhat sociopathic. It was time for us to finally play, drumroll please, Mega Man X, baby! This was actually him. Like, it wasn't a Sonic skin at all. This was Mega Man X through and through. He had wall jumps, a health bar, a stage selection screen, and a gimmick so cool that I'm still shocked that this mod pulled it off. When you defeat a boss as Mega Man X, you actually get a new gun. But the absolute beast that made this mod made the guns based off of the boss fight you just had. Right? Like, I couldn't believe it either. If there was anyone who could test out Sonic stage design, this was your boy. By far the weirdest part about playing Mega Man is that he has no momentum physics. Like at all. If you bounce off of a spring and just tap the opposite direction, he just turns around, which theoretically should make this game terrible because that's Sonic's entire jam. It's kinda like going to a skate park in sandals. And like nothing else, which is awkward to look at, but surprisingly not bad. I'm speaking from experience. Also, all the Eggman bosses have health bars, so they play out like a traditional Mega Man boss. Some are better than others, but most of them work really well. Except here, listen to how stoked I was getting my first gun. I get a drill? That's so sick! That is so sick! Instead of going out of order in the stage select, I decided to beat the game the normal way so that it's easier to follow. Emerald Hill was baby shit, so let's skip forward to Chemical Plant Zone, which, believe it or not, is a stage that I softlock myself in again. I quickly realized that the strongest move in Mega Man's kit isn't a weapon at all. It's his ability to climb up walls. Sonic stages tend to reward the highest path available because in order to stay there you have to play near perfectly. But Mega Man doesn't. He can just climb back up. Because of it, Mega Man makes quick work out of most stages by doing feats that aren't possible for anyone else. Unfortunately, this does lead to more inevitable soft-locking because I'm touching walls you're not supposed to. We get to Eggman and again, I am taken aback by how well these fights play out. They feel good, and I've also always wanted to shoot Eggman in his stupid face, so it's a win-win. Aquatic Ruin Zone is again quite boring because Mega Man can just skip to the top of the stage and walk past everything. That he could wall climb. That shit is so OP. Also, Mega Man doesn't have to breathe underwater because he's a robot. That's cool because that's canon. Keep in mind that this wall jump cheese doesn't always work, which is fair because Mega Man ain't even supposed to be here, dude. We're a long way from Cyber Texas, or wherever he's from. But for the most part, I breezed through most of the early stages by just going where I want to go. At this point, I could say that I was genuinely feeling lucky. I didn't think that these mods were gonna work well, let alone at all. But I've been cruising through the game easier with Mega Man than I would have with Sonic. Next up is Casino Night Zone, which is the stage I was worried about because the pinball gimmick was so trash on Yoshi. But since Mega Man has no momentum physics at all the randomness of the bumpers are completely negated because he could just go wherever. And he could jump up walls if he wants to take the upper route. For some reason, he still turned into a blue ball whenever you touch the bumpers, but just imagine it's a Mega Man power-up, okay? Not everything can be perfect. He's functional. The boss here was laughably easy because I just kind of sat on the wall and shot him. I know it's cringe to bring a gun to a pinball fight, but you know what? The Yoshi fight was so miserable that we'll consider this even, Mr. Eggman. Hilltop Zone was a little bit more platforming than the other stages, which is definitely the moments that Mega Man thrived the most due to his precise control. Also, random fact here, but Spikes one-shot Mega Man. They are in fact the only thing that one-shot Mega Man, but I can't be mad at it because it's canon. If I have to listen to this song any longer, I'm going to reach into my ears and rip out my eardrums. So let's just go to the next level. Mystic Cave Zone is a level that I play slowly because this is easily one of the most dangerous stages for Mega Man. There's spikes that come out of the wall, spikes that are right below you out of vision, walls that smash you, and just about everything here can turn Mega Man into 4 cents of recycling. This stage is so conventional in a platforming sense that, again, you could just swap the sprites and music and it would feel like it was native to Mega Man. Like, it's a good level, it's just not a good Sonic level. Even the spikes here are just as unfair as they are in Mega Man's own games. We get to the falling spike cave boss and turn Eggman into a omelet man, I guess. Then we hit Oil Ocean Zone, which I hate with all my soul. It's just depressing and awful and sucks ass. As Mega Man though, it's not terrible, it's just awkward. Like, you can use Mega Man's verticality to his advantage, but a lot of these walls just don't go anywhere. While struggling to awkwardly crawl through this stage, I realized why I hate it so much. This stage is massive, which should normally mean that it allows the player to be creative in its approach. But since this stage tries to incorporate a ton of different gimmicks at the same time, it becomes one of the most limited stages in the game. It kind of reminds me why so many people hate newer Sonic games. This is supposed to be a playground. What do you mean you're gonna take the control from me to push me down 5 slopes? It just feels so corporate. And I'm not just saying that because you could see the Earth being destroyed in the background. Fortunately, Mega Man can just kinda break out of this by saying no to the momentum, which is oddly inspiring. If you ever find yourself falling off a skyscraper, just don't. I keep trying to be a little too explorative for this stinky zone, and because of it, I fall into the oil again and again. After a bit more finagling with the stage design, we finally get to the end. And it really seems like no matter who I play, this stage sucks. Metropolis Zone is way more up to Mega Man's speed. There are tighter corridors, so my man can be Mega, and he also does a lot of these sections significantly easier than Sonic, because he's good at aerial maneuverability. Next up, we got the auto-scrolling segment, and this was practically made for Mega Man, because he could shoot. Also, Zero is flying the plane, so if we just add a 1 in front of that, I give it a 10. Not much more to say about the final platforming stage, because again, it's kind of a letdown in the difficulty department. It was a little buggy, but not too hard, so whatever. We get to the Death Egg, and finally, it was time to fight the last 2 bosses in the game. They're not hard at all though, because I could just shoot them from across the screen, which is normally illegal. Mega Man X, more like Mega Man W. No. After beating the game with Mega Man, I could say that I was genuinely impressed by this mod, but also even more impressed by the level design of this game. Sonic, Yoshi, and Mega Man share no similarities at all, yet somehow they were able to deliver their own unique experiences while running through the exact same stages. It's insane how well it actually worked. But the main problem here is that all 3 of these characters were good. What if we just played a character that wasn't? A bad, god-awful abomination that has no right being in a Sonic game. or any game for that matter. So for our final run, let's play Bubsy. Now this run, without a shadow of a doubt, is one of the most tilting things I've ever done in my life. You see, Bubsy can only get hit one time before he dies. Sure, you can get a force field, but those are so rare that you can't rely on them for anything. So you can't play fast at all because you'll basically be hit and murdered by something you can't react to. Bubsy's main method of attacking is his glide ability, which has a hitbox. He can jump on enemies too, but it's almost never worth it because when it doesn't work, you instantly vanish. Also, this is the only move he has. He can only jump and then glide. He has no damaging abilities on the ground either. So if an enemy is ever on the floor, it's best to just jump up and fly over them. They don't really find it funny either because the joke goes over their head. Bubsy is also just a little bit taller than Sonic and Mega Man, so he can get hit by more shit. But if all of this wasn't bad enough, I have one more for you. Bubsy also dies to fall damage. So if you bounce off of a spring and it's too high, you will die. Because don't forget that Bubsy can't glide off of a jump he didn't make. So springs kill Bubsy, enemies kill Bubsy, heights kill Bubsy. It'll be easier to list the things that don't kill Bubsy. Maybe subscribing to the channel? Ah, damn it. Never mind. So let's dive into it. Or glide. I fucking guess. I know I said that Emerald Hill Zone is a training zone, but Bubsy finds a way to make things difficult. Also, this time around, it's called Emerald Hill Zone, because he's a cat. I immediately run to the right and hit this fun little yellow spring. And this was the moment that I realized that he dies from fall damage. And don't forget, you can't glide off the springs because it's not a jump that Bubsy made. Hell, even if you run up a half pipe too fast, you can't glide unless you jumped first, which is not possible in some cases. In just about every single case, springs were just another enemy that would get Bubsy killed. Though I was using save states to prevent us from getting a game over, I made a rule that I could only save a state at the checkpoints, making this the only run where I looked for these so I could take a breath before throwing Bubsy to the wolves. We get to Drill Eggman, and after a few expert glides, we break his stupid car and move on. Chemical Plant Zone was a harbinger of death. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean Chemicat Pant Zone. There's a lot of enemies here inconveniently placed, and since Bubsy can't hit most grounded enemies, this was quickly turning into Mission Impossible. Like Paul, because he's a cat. Everything kills Bubsy. Check his goddamn sodium levels. I'm sure if you stand still for long enough, he'll have a stroke. Playing Bubsy is so difficult because as a human, you almost have to have a faster reaction time than you do with Sonic. Like this jump here seems completely unnecessary, but it's something that I actually had to time or I would die from the fall damage. It's like you still need your Sonic reaction time, but now people are throwing dodgeballs at you. Bubsy also controls worse in water somehow. This fight was a nightmare. Not only do you have to repeatedly glide into Eggman in order to do damage, but you also have to dodge his attack and not fall off the sides of the platform, which is hard because his glide is always going at Mach 10. Like, it's so bad. The next stage is uneventful, except for this moment here where Bubsy just decides to die, like for no reason. He just ceases. Can jump. That is tragic, man. Let's go, that's sick! A few deaths later, I learned the absolute funniest thing about this mod. When Bubsy is invulnerable by picking up the Sparkle power-up, he still somehow dies to fall damage. Like, how cool is that? The next stage is where I almost called it quits entirely, Clausino Night Zone. The reason this level is just so, deplorable is because just about everything kills you. You touch a launcher, it sends you too high and you're dead. You bounce off a bumper, too high and you're dead. Do you not want to use the bumper and just want to drop down instead? Still too high and you're dead. I can't even tell you how close I was to stopping here, but about this close. Yikes. Even the sections that you're supposed to slide on to get down kill you with fall damage. The only good thing is that Bubsy's glide is capable of going through things, so abusing this, I may have a shot. Still, it's not great. It's one thing to make something work when it's not supposed to, but it's another thing to make something work when everything is making sure that it doesn't. It's like a man with a fear of heights becoming a professional cliff diver. Like, that's the one thing he shouldn't be. And it's like this the entire time. To even make it to the end, you have to play almost perfectly. Purr spelled P-U-R-R, because he's a cat. Also, funny joke, did you know that Bubsy's fall damage isn't based on how high you fall from? It's based on momentum. So if any of these bumpers smack you downward, you die. I get stuck here for an ungodly amount of time. And to be a little bit more annoying, the next section was all bumpers, so one false move, and I died. This death right here hurt me so bad because I was right next to the checkpoint. Like, I'm so sure a shard of my brain was touching it. But after more deaths than I care to count or remember, I defeat Eggman and we can finally leave this gambling life behind. Next up, we have Hill Tail Zone and Mystic Cave Zone. Both stages don't really offer anything new for the Bubster, so there's no real reason to talk about him. The Hilltop boss was easy because I just bounced on him indefinitely, and the Mystic Cave Zone boss was basically the same story. Oil Ocean Zone was the level that scared me the most. Bubsy's fragile knees would not survive the impact of the barrel blasts. His tall and awkward hitbox meant that he would get one-shotted by these awful seahorses that would shoot before you can react, and since this level wants to only be beat one way, a lot of these sections just didn't work. There are actual unreachable sections of this stage because Bubsy literally couldn't get there. And here I was starting to feel like it was an uphill battle. I even got so desperate after dying for an hour that I whipped out a map midstream to plot out a route that wouldn't kill Bubsy. Where's the end of the stage? Before I did this video, I didn't even know the maps looked like this. And now I'm basically a tour guide. I'm scrolling through every single pixel to see if Bubsy could literally make it out in one piece. Cannot do this. So we're standing right here right now. If we glide this way, climb up this oil slick, run all the way over here, hit this elevator so that it gets the fuck out of our way, go down here, and then go left into the fourth burner, it will lead us to the top path, which means the third elevator we could use to fly into this thing, which might kill us from fall damage, actually. And after realizing that a bit of a backtrack may be able to lead me to a section that won't shatter our furred friend, I hit the stage again, trying anything to succeed. We find a barrel that I fly into off screen, and though it launches us really high, for some reason Bubsy is able to glide out of it. I don't care if it was a bug, just let me out. And finally, after over an hour, we get to the boss, which is anticlimactic because Bubsy stomps him out like he's owed money. Next up, we got Miclopolis Zone, which sucks total ass because there's so many enemies that Bubsy can't deal with. The grasshopper with the homing blades, the starfish that shoots bullets, the crab that you can't fly through. This is basically the bottom of hell. The precision platforming sections aren't great either because Bubsy controls like he's having a seizure on ice skates. The launchers on this stage also function differently as well, so they outright kill you. Then we get to the boss, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart when I say this, but this fight was not humanly possible. You have to jump on Eggman 8 times, and the timing and hitbox on it are so insanely precise. I don't even know how many times I died here, but I'll flash it on the screen. I eventually decided to use save states because I'm not related to Thanos, and I didn't want to spend a week doing this. And after cheating my way through this boss, it was finally time for the end. Auto-scrolling zone was auto-scrolling zone, so there's nothing to talk about there. There's no cool pilot either because Bubsy doesn't have friends. Egg Carrier again is a letdown, but we basically beat it on our first or second try. And now there was just 2 bosses left, and we would have successfully beaten the game with the worst character ever made. Except that's not what happened because Bubsy just dies in the cutscene. Like, you actually cannot get to the final boss of this game as Bubsy because he just glides off screen and You actually cannot get to the final bosses of the game unless you use a stage select, which means you can't actually beat the game as Bubsy, dropping our win rate down to a 66%. I wasn't gonna let that stop me though, so stage select it is. Metal Sonic was a breeze cause Bubsy has toes of steel, and Eggman is cat food the second I decide to play patiently. And with that, we somewhat successfully finish our 3 runs of Sonic with non-Sonic characters. As I wiped my brow and celebrated a job well done, I started to think about it. I used to wonder why so many people were obsessed with Sonic the Hedgehog. Even after years and years of disappointment, Sonic fans always find themselves cautiously excited whenever the blue hedgehog is brought back in the mix. And after doing this challenge, I think I kind of understand why. Sonic games aren't supposed to just be beaten. It's not a point A to point B platformer where there's only one path to the end. Sonic stages are so much more than that. They're massively stylized and incredibly complex playgrounds created with the player's creativity and enjoyment in mind. These stages were so well made that even with 3 completely different non-Sonic characters, they were able to deliver an experience that was so fun I would recommend it to any fan of the franchise. Except for Bubsy, he could go die. Sonic games aren't just about speed. They're about creativity, precision, exploration, and most importantly, they're about the player just having fun. And that's honestly what matters most. So thank you for watching. If you think this video was weird, then you should check out this video where I played a bunch of terrible Mario Party clones by myself. It was awful, and the AI actually cheated me a lot. So you should totally check out that video that's on screen, because if you liked this one, you will definitely enjoy that one as well. Go ahead and click it. Go on, click the video on screen. Go. Check it out. Also, please subscribe. Click the video on the screen. Come on, check it out. It's a good one. Come on. I'm gonna get out of here because my office is 110 degrees and I'm dying. Goodbye.